It's Kellen,
And Kendall,
and this is Off Court Racket.
the tennis podcast that's not really about tennis. We have bicoastal, well, not really, but we have long distance sisters talking about all things tennis that happens off the court, like relationships and coaches, the tournaments, all the good drama that keeps us engaged with the players on the court. So we're going to get into it.
So this week in tennis, we'll have to start, of course, with the Indian Wells recap. Indian Wells just ended on Sunday. So Kendall, let's
So
talk about
great.
that.
Indian Wells is such an exciting tournament. I love it. Most people think about it as the fifth slam. It has a lot of prestige, like we talked about in the last episode. And so almost all the players, I would say, prioritize this tournament and they go to it. So a lot of exciting things came out of it. On the court, at least, we can start there. That a lot of exciting players that I'm so happy to talk about. Mboko, who's the teenager from Canada. She made it to the quarters, which is amazing. This is like a great run of basically a year long of good results from her. So it's really exciting to see her get deep into the tournament. You know, my favorite, JPEG, for all those that don't know, that is my number one American tennis player. I love Jessica Pegula. I love her work
Yeah.
ethic. I think that she consistently produces in all of the tournaments that she plays in, so I'm a huge fan. Svitolina, we love the moms, right? Svitolina got to the quarters this year again. Since she's come back from maternity leave, she consistently is going very, very deep into tournaments. So it was really great to see that lineup in the quarters. Of course, we have Sabalenka and Rybakina, those typical names. But yeah, Serena finally got her Indian Wells trophy. So that was really great to see. I thought it was a very competitive final. She got a little bit of her revenge back from the Australian Open. What do you think about that? Because, you know, Rybakina beat her just like a month and a half to 2 months ago. A little bit of a heartbreak. And now she got a bit of, you know, karma.
Like she was not going to lose that match because she
Yeah.
wanted to get back what she lost at Australian Open. The one thing I did want to say real quick just about Victoria, because I think I saw on Instagram during the Indian Wells that she was ranked, what was it, 355 a year ago, and now she's in
Yeah.
top 10?
I mean, her rise has been
See.
actually, it's very similar to Ben Shelton's. If you remember that year, he had a pretty crazy jump in rankings as well. And I think it only took like probably one or two really good tournaments because remember he made the Australian Open, like
He
the
did. He made
semis
the
or maybe the
quarters.
quarters.
Yeah,
And his ranking jumped like 100, 200 spots as well.
Mhm.
And so it's very similar to that. But yeah, I think last year she was ranked, you know, definitely outside the 100. And now she's top 10 and consistently doing well. I
Yes.
think I remember the first time I actually watched her was the Madrid Open last year. And she played Coco, I think maybe in the second or third round. And I could tell she was talented. I was like, oh, she's gonna be
Oh, that's
good. So it's
awesome.
really nice to see her consistently develop and, you know, at her home tournament and they were I think it was what was it, Toronto, Montreal, where she did
Mhm.
a really, you know, she won that over Osaka. So it's really
That's
nice to
right.
see her, you know,
That's right.
to
Yeah.
continue to do well. So the women definitely brought a lot of consistent names, of course, but you have a few sprinkled in there that were refreshing to see. On the male side, you have the usual players. It was really, of course, we have Alcaraz in center, and we also had Medvedev and Zverev as a part of the quarters or semis,
Mhm.
excuse me. So it was nice actually to see Medvedev back. He's been not like up and down with his
Mhm.
performance. So it was really great to see him do really well. Of course, hard courts are his favorite surface. So that was great. We got robbed of a Sinkeraz final. How do you feel about that? Were you actually happy that we didn't have to see Carlos and Yannick again?
I was actually happy because we're going to see them again in the finals, probably for the rest of the Grand Slams. And so it was nice to see someone else in the finals. I mean, I did not think that Medvedev was going to beat Sinner. That wasn't going to happen. But I still feel like it was a good match, and I'm glad that it was somebody different.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's really interesting to hear people like get tired of seeing the same two players
Yeah.
either get all the trophies or making it to every finals. It makes tennis predictable and boring. And
Right.
of course, a lot of the other players don't like how or they perceive the tournaments to really favor them because they feel like people want to see that for ratings and for sponsorships or
Yeah.
whatever it might be. they want to see them in the finals. And so I think Zverev has talked about this a lot. I think he griped about it at the Australian Open. He's definitely griped about it in the past of like, you all are, showing favoritism to them because you want them to make the final. So what do you think about that? Do you think tennis is better for having these two stars that are bankable and bring the eyes to the sport? Or do you think it's actually refreshing for there to be upsets in the draw?
So I go back and forth because you know how I feel about flashes in the pan, that we've
Yeah,
had conversations about. But I would probably say, because I have gotten a little irritated that, like, I know Sablenka's going to get to the semis. I know she's going to get to the final. And it's like, okay, we're going to see another tournament with her, or we're going to see another tournament matchup with Carlos and Yannick. And I'm like, this gets boring after a while. But, like, how did people feel in the late 2000s when Serena and Federer and,
exactly.
Djokovic were winning everything? Like, did they feel the same way? So I feel a little bit conflicted because I love the greats and they were greats for a reason. And so I feel like we need to, you know, let Carlos and Yannick be great and let Sablenka be great. But also at the same time, is it boring? Because it's the same. But
Yeah. I mean,
it's not always going to be like, it's not always where Carlos dominates Yannick or vice versa. And the same for Sablenka. So, I mean, it still is competitive, even every time they play.
agreed. I think it's kind of I'm torn between whether it's good or bad for the sport because you're right that there's always these stretches of time when there is a pretty dominant player or players where you feel
Hmm.
like the results are somewhat predictable. But I also do like the idea of a surprise person. There was a period of time where the women's game, it was like a different slam winner every single
Oh,
slam.
yeah.
Like there was very, very little consistency. You're just like, so you have a really long string of one hit wonders because of that. And then kind of Iga
Yeah.
and Sabalenka kind of came around and started establishing that consistent dominance. And you're like, finally, there's a little normalcy
Right.
to
Right.
the game. But I do think it's good for tennis because again, it's one of those sports that isn't highly watched by at least
Hmm.
American fans. So the repetition actually is probably helpful so that people only
Totally.
actually know. I would say if you polled some people in the street, they probably could only name, one of five players. And so the more that those people win, I think it is probably good for the ranging, the wider kind of reach for the sport.
Hmm.
For actual fans, I don't know. You have the kind of cohorts of people that love the player that you're supporting. So it's never going to be too much for them. It
That's
really is
true.
a matter
Yeah.
of the casual observers of the sport. Anyways, so congrats to Yannick for his first Indian Wells. Congrats to Sabalenka for her first Indian Wells. So that was, I think, great for them. Do you?
Taylor
Okay.
Townsend. Taylor Townsend. And I'm going to pronounce the girl's name wrong. Sinkova.
Senyakova?
There you go. See, I know I was going to pronounce it wrong. Yes. I don't know if this is their first Indian Wells as doubles.
I
Do you
don't
have it
know.
on the
I mean,
top of
they
your
they
head?
play pretty consistently together,
They
so
do.
this isn't their
They do.
first one. They've won like Grand Slams and stuff, so it doesn't
Correct.
surprise me. They're a really good team.
Yeah. I was excited for them.
Great, great. And so there were a couple moments throughout the tournament that we want to just kind of talk about a bit. There was a lot of, conversation with the crowd. So Yannick had a moment where he was, I think, cursing at a heckler. I think Mira Andreeva had a little commentary towards the crowd. There's a lot of discussion about hecklers because you kind of feel like, especially the ones that are close enough so that the players can hear, they paid a lot of money for those seats. So you're
Very
talking
true.
about people that are hundreds and thousands of dollars for tickets just to berate the players. That just seems like a crazy thing to me.
Well, the thing is, I feel like you're not supposed to do that, especially in tennis, because isn't it predominantly a quiet sport? And I may be only just talking because of like the Grand Slams. A lot of them are not. You're supposed to be quiet like when the ball is in play. Am I wrong?
They're not necessarily doing it when the ball is in play. They're doing it like when they're walking up to serve or they're bouncing the ball in between points. So it's not necessarily
Quiet.
interrupting them. It's not interrupting their like swing or an interference per se. It's just
Hmm.
like, why are you all talking? I'm someone who doesn't need the quietness of Wimbledon. Like I think that's an overkill in terms of how we should be managing the noise level, but I also
Yeah.
don't need like excessive insults, or you have fans that are really going at the players, especially when they're almost like an earshot. I don't know, I
Hmm.
mean, basketball is a very loud sport and people are always yelling crazy things, and the players have to take it in basketball too. I do think tennis is different because it is,
It's a
like you said, a
single.
largely quiet, it's an individual sport and it's largely quiet. Basketball arenas are
Yes.
not quiet. So
Yes.
someone yelling, obscenities and insults at the players kind of gets drowned out by all of the other noise that is included in a basketball game. Tennis matches are quiet. So yeah, it's going to stand out a lot more.
The it's a single player game. So you're heckling and yelling at not necessarily your team as you would in football or basketball. You're literally heckling just one individual player, which probably hits the player even more
Yeah.
from an emotional standpoint. And it's interesting because I saw some of the comments where Yannick has never reacted like that. But it
Hmm.
might have been just because the heckler was just going and going and going and wouldn't stop. And it's just like, yo, just chill. Like, just chill. So that was crazy. And then Andriva, she wanted to defend her title. She's allowed to have an emotional breakdown. She was probably surprised that she won last year,
Yeah.
and she wanted to come back again and do the same exact thing. I didn't watch that match, so I don't know if she played well the entire game or if it was like maybe her off day. I'm not sure. But I felt bad for her. And I felt like her meltdown was warranted. I don't know if she should have been saying F you, but she's
Yeah, I didn't get a chance to watch a lot of her matches. Last year, I definitely watched her run more consistently.
okay.
And so I was excited when she ended up beating, a lot of the top players. I think she beat Egan in the semis and then beat Sabalenka in the finals.
Mm.
So that was a really good run. I'm a big fan of Andreeva. I think she's very, very talented, and I love her coach Conchita. So, you know, there's always a little bit of pressure, like you said, when you're defending your title. So the emotions are running high. And
Hmm.
again, people can be jerks in the crowd. And if they're saying stuff I think you said that, people are making comments and then like Yannick, he never really responds. But I do think that both of them responded either at the end of the game or later in the match. So this is built up over time because
Yeah.
the hecklers are saying things throughout the entire match, and you're like, okay, they're gonna calm down. They're not gonna say anything. And then it's just like it boils over essentially. So, it makes sense to me. I think they're well within their rights. And to some degree, I don't know, do you think the tournament supervisors should keep that in check a little bit more? Maybe they should kick people out when they're taking it excessive?
I think they should, because that's what people would do in other sports when you have fans that are,
Not
over the
really though.
top.
They're not kicking people out of a basketball arena for calling out
Really?
LeBron. You're not going to do
I'm.
that. You're
I
not
guess
going to do that.
I'm the wrong person because I don't watch a whole lot of sports, but I should probably ask you that. That should be a question for you, more so than me.
Yeah, I know a lot of people go back and forth about, whether they should be kicked out, because they're paying
Mhm.
spectators. But there is a point where it's, I think, normal or acceptable levels of, I don't know, going at the players. And then there's excessive. And I think when it starts getting into the territory of excessive, they need to be removed. Because usually they're probably a little intoxicated. And so then there's really no calming them down at
Right,
that point.
right, for sure,
So
for
it's like
sure.
they're just going to get worse. And at that point, it'll be a hindrance at some point. So, yeah.
Hmm.
But at any rate, Andy Wells brought us a lot of two new champions, but also a lot of moments. Kellen, actually, I didn't see this live, but the Eubanks and Coco exchange. You want to talk about that? I got a lot of the fallback. Chris kind of came back and said, it was just a joke. We were just bantering, co-hosts. So you tell me, do you think that that was true or not?
I think he's saving face and trying to
Okay.
downplay it. I was uncomfortable when I was watching it live. I was just like, is this really happening? But also the feedback that he was giving Coco was fair of like her commentary is very self-centered as though she forgets that she was a player. But I get, this is his first year. Isn't this the first year where he has like a full actual contract with Tennis Channel?
I don't know. I mean,
I can't remember.
he's been present. I see him as pretty much a staple on their network.
Hmm.
In my mind, it's been longer than a year, but maybe they were testing him out or had like a trial period, and now he's
Yeah.
like a complete full blown member of the team. That could be it.
Okay. I'm like, I thought they were just testing him out. And so with that exchange, I'm like, you can even see the other commentator just like, I
Getting
don't know what
tense.
to
Yeah.
say. Sure, let's downplay it. That's perfectly fine because
Yeah. He
again,
kind of
tennis
just
is
came
prim
off
and
like,
proper, so we don't, we don't ruffle feathers.
yeah, I don't know how to take it because he kind of came back realizing that it had a little virality on social media and
Yeah,
everything. And he was like, oh, this was just, co-hosts and professionals having a little banter. Like it was nothing. And I don't think either of them, particularly him, had any like vitriol behind it. Like he's not
right,
mean
right.
spirited, but at the same time, I think his commentary was probably accurate.
Yes,
When things hit too close to home, it's like, oh, this isn't a joke anymore. This isn't like light-hearted. So
exactly. That's I'm like, I don't want to put him in a negative light in any way, shape, or form because I feel like his commentary was fair from what I have heard from her when she commentates on matches. But I'm like, man, you gotta calm down, Coco. But what do I know?
those were a few of the moments that took place over the last 2 weeks in the desert of Palm Springs, beautiful Palm Springs, one of my favorite places. I've been a couple times. Both Kel and I, we need to get back. I think we want to try to get to Indian Wells next year. And so
Yes.
if we plan accordingly, we can make it. Miami is up next. So Kellen is going to give us all the details of the Miami Open. This is one of her favorite tournaments.
It
And
is.
so she's going to be on the ground covering it for us at a couple of the matches. And of course, having all the fun on the grounds. That's like as much fun as she has on the courts as she does in the outer portions. So give us a little bit of what's happening with the Miami Open this year.
So before I jump into the Miami Open, so if y'all remember from our last episode,
Mm.
we talked about the Sunshine Double. And so Indian Wells is part one of the Sunshine Double, and part two is Miami Open. And so they're back to back tournaments, and there are not a lot of tennis winners that have won both matches back to back. So I at least wanted to start off and say Sabalenka has a good chance because the last winner on the women's side was Iga in 2022, where she won the Sunshine Double. Sabalenka could do it this year. Fingers crossed that she does. I love her, even though when she beats Coco, it makes me sad, but that's neither here nor there. So, anyways, so yes, Miami Open is part two of the Sunshine Double. And I would probably say that for me, I'm biased because I used to live in Florida, but Miami Open is super fun. Kendall will tell you when we went a couple years ago, I was like, oh my goodness, are all tennis tournaments like this? Because there's so much to do just outside of just watching tennis. So
Right.
during the Miami Open, it is at the Hard Rock Stadium, which is where the Miami Dolphins play. And they set up all these different outside courts, like around the stadium. And then you have all these different vendors and you have all these different parties that are happening. You have all these different sponsors. And so there's lots of stuff to do outside of just watching tennis,
Hmm.
which I ended up doing that year that we went, which was, did we say was 2022?
I
2023.
think it was 2023 is when we went.
Yes, 2023. And I was like, we have to make this an annual thing. And so we haven't been back since. So I'm going for the second week, which I'm super excited about. So I'll be able to go to the semifinals going to the quarters on Thursday and the semifinals on Friday in the last week in March. And there's a lot of things happening, like I've mentioned, around the Miami Open. They have different events every single day. They have different focus days, similar to how a lot of the other tournaments, a lot of the other Grand Slams do it as well. So like they have college night, they have Black Professionals night, they have Kids Day, they have different concerts that are happening like at night. So even if you aren't watching like the tennis matches, you can still go to some of the concerts. The other cool thing that happens at the Miami Open is different players will come and make appearances at the booths. So
Hmm.
I don't think I mentioned this on the last episode, but I was able to go see Francis. I stood in line for like 20 minutes in I forgot what product he was sponsoring, but
Was it a liquor brand? Was it not like
it was a
alcohol?
beer, Stella. It was the Stella beer.
Stella. It was Stella.
And I waited in line for maybe like 20 minutes, and he was doing pictures with each of the fans. He would hold like the bottle of beer.
Mm.
And I was super excited about that. I was like, this is great. And so they actually had like a whole like all of the list of events where players would be so that you could get pictures and talk to them and stuff like that. So I was like, I was spoiled with that induction to tennis matches, and I expect every tennis match to be like that. Wimbledon was similar to that. Thupper was a little bit more, posh. But anyways, I'm excited about going next week. Now I want to jump into, of course, all the people who are playing. So, of course, every tennis tournament, they have wild cards. And so we're super excited that Steven's got a wild card, and so did
Sloan?
Venus. Which I feel like they're consistently getting wild cards because Venus got a wild card to ATX Open. She got a wild card to, I think, Indian Wells too. And so
She
does
did get
Sloan.
she did get a wild card to Indian Wells. I didn't know if Sloan got an Indian Wells wild card, but that doesn't necessarily surprise me because both of them are pretty good draws for crowds. Wild
Yeah,
cards are basically about, helping whatever hometown hero or person that could potentially help the reach of that tournament. And so Venus is an easy one to get tickets sold, and so is Sloan, right? She's an
right.
American player that people love, and so it's great, I think, to see both of them get wild cards. So I'm curious about the performance. I think Venus is actually still keeping things competitive, even though she hasn't gotten through to the second round. But Sloan, I don't know. We'll see about her performance.
This is her first year back, right? Because
Hmm.
for some reason I thought she retired,
She
and then
did.
she went and she went into commentating, and now she's back. But was she just taking a break like
How was she?
Wozniak?
Don't know if she had always planned to come back because she did. I don't even know if she fully retired or announced her retirement. I just know she had stepped away, and then all of a sudden you saw her on desk and with a microphone.
And
But
her bomb
we all
outfits.
know, and right, and we all know, she was still young, still healthy. I don't think that injuries took her off the court. That's the thing, is usually, especially if a player is young, the reason why that they're retiring is because maybe they've had chronic injuries
Mm-hmm.
for the same particular issue. And so they just want to preserve their bodies and go ahead and let it be over. I don't remember her having many issues consistently. And so to have her sit down maybe
Yeah,
was a bit surprising. So I think it's good that she's back because I do think she has probably more to offer to tennis.
agreed.
And I hope that she's competitive in Miami. I don't think she won. I think she got a bad draw in Australia because I think it was a tough match. Can't remember who her first round
Really?
opponent was, but I think it was somebody tough. So, that's the only thing is when you're a wild card, you get put in there with pretty higher ranked players. So it's going to be a challenge to get through the draw when you are
Mm-hmm.
basically a shoe in based on the tournament personnel liking or wanting your name as a part of the player list.
One thing I do want to ask, because I think you've told me this before, but for our listeners who don't know, because I've already forgotten, how are wild cards decided?
It's just discretion. Yeah, it's
It's not even like we're putting them in a pot and then we're rolling. Oh, okay.
No, the wild card is at least for, I'm gonna say, for the Grand Slams and for the 1,000 events. To my knowledge, I can follow up and do some digging, but I'm pretty sure that it's discretion of the tournament staff
Interesting. Okay.
because, as you can imagine, for each slam, for example, they're always going to be that country's players. Wimbledon, they always give wild cards to British players, right?
That's true. That's
Australia, they're giving them to Australian players. So it's all discretion because, again, you want to either add more eyes and sell more tickets, or you want to also support your players. Because usually, at least for the slams, it's not just the ATP or the WTA that puts it on, it's that country's like tennis association. Because I think
yeah.
like Tennis Australia helps through the event. Same thing with Wimbledon. I can't remember their actual like players association for
Yeah.
their in the for US Open it's the USTA, right? It's always kind of co-sponsored by the local tennis association. So they have a pretty vested interest in making sure their people get included in the tournament.
So, does that mean, since we know that Serena was reinstated in February, that next season that she could potentially get wild cards for every tournament because again, it's at the tournament's discretion. People want to see her play.
That is such a good question. I mean, every time I see her on these commercials, I'm like, is this a comeback? Is this the slow burn for the comeback? Because there's no tournament that would not gladly give her
Exactly.
a wild card, whether or not she's
For sure.
American. Wimbledon would give her a wild card. You know, US Open would definitely give her a wild card. So it's just a matter of her saying, "Hey guys, I want to play," and she would be a complete shoo-in. I think it would be amazing for her to come back, especially if she's healthy and she feels
Hmm.
confident to play. I would not be surprised if she could still be competitive out there, truly. Especially if she's training
She
right
could.
now. Part of me
Yeah.
feels like she is training right now,
Yeah.
and I would be very concerned if I was the rest of the tour. That's all I'm gonna say. Because at the very least, she's getting to like the second or third round. Like, I feel like she could probably still
100%.
win a couple matches in a row. And what is she, 43, 42, 43? Watch out. I don't know.
I would be so excited. I want her to come back. I want her to come back. I love her to death. Okay, so I guess we'll see. We'll have to wait for either later on
We
this
will see.
tennis season or next tennis season. So with the Miami Open, this is the conclusion of the hard court season, right? This is the last like major hard court
Yes. So
match.
after the sunshine double, we turn things to clay season. I think there might be a couple more minor events like 250s and 500s
Yeah.
potentially, but at least on the women's side, things go pretty quickly to Charleston, which is on clay. That's a great tournament. And so the family of
Navarro.
Navarro, thank you. Her family owns, was it Credit Bank, Credit One?
It's credit one, yeah.
They own, or they're the sponsors for that tournament. So
Hmm.
Charleston happens very soon after, and then you have Houston that I think happens a couple weeks after that, and then you go straight into Monte Carlo. So the clay court swing really does begin after the Sunshine Double, which is one of my favorite parts of the season. I actually really enjoy clay season because it tends to be unpredictable. People
Yes.
don't practice as much on clay, and so the results of the tournaments tend to be a little more less likely, and you get some new faces and new names, which keeps things interesting. So I'm looking forward to that. But before we get there, Sunshine Double, Miami, and we're looking forward to it. People are usually tired coming out of Indian Wells, but
Yeah.
usually there's at least some consistent performance with some of the bigger names that get to at least the second week of the tournament. But I would say more often than not, you're going to see a new champion on finals Sunday. So.
Yeah. So for your predictions
Mm,
for Indian Wells, we won't say the winners, but who do you think will be in the semis
for Miami.
for Miami?
So I'm still going with JPEG. I love Jesse.
Listen, we
I'm
like
going with
consistency. We like
I'm going
consistency.
I'm gonna keep the consist. I'm gonna Jesse, Rabakina, Sabalenka, and the thing is the draw came out. I don't know which side everybody's on. So this might
Yeah, you're right.
I might be busting my own chops here. I'm trying to think of the fourth person. I'm gonna go with Baka Sabalenka, Jesse, and I need a wild card of someone that's gonna go deep. Let's go with Ostapenko.
Wow.
Just
That's a
because
random one, but that's not a
that is,
bad one at the
I
same
was trying to
time.
think of someone random because no one could have predicted Iala last year. She was a breath of fresh air
Yes.
for the Miami
Yes.
tournament, and so we
That's
might get
true.
some surprises on the men's side. Who knows? I'm gonna still put Alcaraz getting to the semis. I'm gonna put Medvedev getting to the semis because he has done well in Miami. I think he got
Hmm.
to the
Hmm.
semis a couple years ago
He did, yeah.
when he beat Chris Eubanks, actually, when Chris had a really good deep run in Miami. And of course, I'll put center there because I think he consistently plays well. Who's the wild card on the men's side? I guess Zverev. Again, that's not too that's the men's are more predictable. I'm gonna actually go with the same semifinalist that I went with or that got to the semis
You-
in Indian Wells. Who? And I'm gonna make Ben. I'm gonna do Alcaraz, center, Ben, and Medvedev. That's what we're going with. What about you?
The American men got out pretty early in Indian Wells, right?
They
Like none
did.
of them got to
They
like the
did.
fourth round outside of Lerner.
Yes.
But I think for Miami, I'm gonna put for hardcourt on the women's side, Sabalenka, Rabakina. I want to throw Keys in there because she's consistent too. She can be consistent, especially on hardcourt. And I gotta throw Coco in there because that's my girl.
Okay. I
And
like your picks are better than mine, actually.
and then on the men's side, of course, Carlos, Yannick,
Hmm.
Zverev, and let's throw Casper in there because Casper went to the quarters in Indian Wells, didn't he? Or maybe he was in the fourth round at Indian Wells. He got pretty
I
deep.
this
I
past
can't
year,
remember.
I
Yeah, he
don't.
did. I was surprised. I was like, oh wow, because I need him to come back around. I
Mm,
liked him a lot. I liked him a lot. Whoop, but we shall see. Those will be our predictions for now, and then after the tournament's over, we'll circle back in preparation for clay court season and see if our predictions were right.
here we go.
But in our final moments, I did at least want to ask you for the best dress at Indian Wells.
Okay, we didn't talk about Osaka's outfit. I
We
think
didn't, which is why I'm like, I think hers was best dress.
I'm
But
gonna give it to Osaka. I didn't really love any. I don't think anyone else gave anything exciting. I think the men, Francis always has something colorful or interesting.
yeah.
Usually, I would say Ben, Shelton, and Francis usually have something colorful at the very least, but nothing really wowed me. I kind of liked their looks, their casual looks, their off court looks when
Hmm.
they came or entered into the stadium right at the beginning of the tournament. Those were a little bit more interesting.
Yeah,
On the
they were.
court, I didn't love the kits, so not much to say for me. What about you?
I would say just Osaka. I liked all of her
Hmm.
tribal jewelry, the decked out ear, as well as the jewelry that she had in her mouth. She's always making a statement and she's good for that, which I
Love
appreciate.
it.
Love it.
She had fun with fashion. I think I do, regardless of whether you like what she does on court, she's actually taking a risk and incorporating something that she enjoys, is passionate about. She's the face of a couple different brands. I know she's a Louis Vuitton brand ambassador and a number of other high fashion partnerships that she's had over the years. So it's something that she likes. And I like that she brings it to the court, even though she's not wearing it like while she's playing. I think
Right.
she's creating a fashion moment before and after the matches, which is great.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Cool. Okay. Well, we'll see what the fashion kits bring us for Miami Open. I'm excited to see what she'll bring us, if she's going to wear the same thing or what other people are going to wear. So more
Yeah.
to come.
Well, thank you guys for listening. We are so glad that you spent some time with us while we chat about tennis, and we look forward to having you join us in our next episode.
Yes, and we hope that you like the video content now because we did do audio first. And so now we're switching to the video format. So let us know if you have any feedback for us, but
Please
we will
do.
talk to y'all again. Bye, guys.
My lighting kept changing throughout.